We welcome in Rick Spielman. He is now part of CBS Sports HQ, longtime general manager, front office executive in the National Football League. Welcome in, Rick. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on this afternoon.
Hey, we appreciate it. So just jump right in with some of your observations. You've seen a lot of football for a lot of years. What did you think of what you've seen so far from the Doug Peterson-led Jags?
Yeah, no, just coming out of these first two practices, and I watched practice today, and the guy that impressed me the most, and I think is going to have a great year, is Trevor Lawrence. And the way he had command of this offense, I think Doug Peterson's offense, you see a lot of RPOs, you see a lot of play action. You're limiting some of the progressions that Trevor has to go through so he can play fast. He can play physical if he has to run the ball. So I think he's going to have a very good year. And I thought Trent Baalke did a great job getting some weapons around him. They got a lot of good players. I don't know if they're going to be all pros, but when you go out and get Zay Jones and Kirk and Ingram to go along with what they have. But I think the biggest thing on the offensive side of the ball will be the two running backs. And to get ETN, and look how he's moving out there. And I was shocked that Robinson didn't start on the PUP list and how he's moving. So I think they have an opportunity to be one of the best two running back combos in the league if they both can stay healthy.
Rick Spielman, former GM of the Minnesota Vikings, joining us on the Farah Farah phone line now with CBS Sports HQ. Rick, give us a little perspective from the outside looking in. When you were up in Minnesota last season, watching the Urban Meyer project, let's call it that, the Urban Meyer project that was going on in Jacksonville, what was your perception of Trevor Lawrence, what this team was doing, and then what happened in the aftermath in this past offseason?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't really care. I was worried about the Minnesota Vikings and playing in the NFC North. We weren't playing Jacksonville last year. So it's funny, when you're with a team and you're running an organization, you're almost in like a bubble on what's going on with you and your team during training camp. Now you're being, keeping abreast of what's going on the outside because you don't know, as this goes on, potential trades or where you need to improve your roster during training camp and how you're going to be able to do that. But for the most part, it was just in your own bubble. Now, coming from the outside and just hearing the people within the organization talking, a lot of the people that I talk to, that it's a lot of energy. There's a lot of enthusiasm. They're getting treated like pros from what was described to me. And I think the players are going to respond and respect that. They're grown men now, and they get paid to play football for a living. And so I think that'll make a huge difference in this football team because they're getting treated like professionals.
Rick, I have a story to tell. About 20 years ago, there was this offensive.
Can I tell a quick story, Leon? I remember when I was just a scout, and I went down. You were the greatest offensive lineman with your hands that ever held in the game of history. Frank Winters, the old center at Green Bay, held the hell out of people, but you were one of the tops, bud. So you have to be very proud of that accomplishment in my mind.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. But this story tells of a GM in Miami, and there was this offensive lineman and free agency was trying to get to Miami and tried to get an extra $500,000 out of the Miami Dolphins, and this GM said, no way. Leon wants to be in Miami anyway. Why would we pay him more money? I'm trying to, Rick, do you remember that GM that said that?
Yeah, Chris Greer. Yeah, I don't know why he would say something like that.
No, but
things were very tight back then.
They were.
Salary cap was tight. We had a pretty good team back then, but it was like you got to balance the numbers, But I was just thinking how much tax dollars you were going to save just staying and playing in Miami.
That's true.
And being and back in your area.
That's true. Now, Rick, you look at Trayvon Walker. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on this kid being the number one pick overall comparative to the stats that he had last year out of Georgia. Is there any stress on the GM if this kid doesn't pan out over the next year or two?
I think you don't stress out over the first year. I remember. And we took Danielle Hunter in the third round. And when I went out and saw physically how he looked, he reminded me a lot of Danielle, but he's even smoother as an athlete. And then I saw him playing from a two-point stance. Most of his sack production last year at Georgia came when he was reduced inside, and he was just a mismatch versus most of the guards that he went over. So I think that in my opinion, and what I've seen in some of the studies I've done, that the Jaguars, the strength of their defense is going to be their pass rushers this year. And with Allen coming back and hopefully playing fully healthy and getting back to what he showed as a rookie, and Walker, and don't disregard Smoot because I think he led the Jaguars last year in quarterback pressure. So that's affecting the quarterback as well. I'm curious to see if Chason will come on. This is his third year. That's, as a GM, when you're watching guys progress, usually if you know by the end of their third year whether they're going to be players or not. But this kid, Trayvon Walker, has too much upside, too much athletic ability, unique length, and you know how important that is for defensive linemen when you're trying to block those guys, and it's hard to grab a hold of them if they have that arm length and they can lock you out. So I think this kid has he may not be as polished right now, but I think as the season progresses and he goes through his career, he has a chance to be something very special.
Hey, Rick, players win games, obviously, and I know it's only 2 days out there, but when you look at that roster out there, do you see dudes that can help elevate this team to more than a 4 wins in the last 2 years type of team?
Yeah, I predicted, although I can't do math, that they were going to be 500. Unfortunately, they played 17 games, so I had to cover myself and say, yeah, they're going to be 8-1 this year. So I think this coaching staff's going to make a difference. I think Caldwell will make a difference on the defensive side. He worked under Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles, in my opinion, is one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. But the thing that is going to make this team, because they have a lot of talent on this team, and I think they're getting overlooked. But coaches do, and just what I've seen the first 2 days of practice, they're going to figure out what these guys' strengths are and what they do best. So on the defensive side of the ball, I know they want to be an attack defense. I saw different blitz packages. I saw those guys coming off the edge. I think Arden Key, who Trent brought in from San Francisco, is an inside pass rusher, and Robinson Harris is going to be, they're going to be tough to handle up front. But you got to know back end in the secondary what those guys' strengths are. Like, to me, Samuel, I think he's a better zone and man cover corner. So you don't want to put him in those situations if you don't have to. I'm very interested to see how Tyson Campbell comes along, because I thought in the Atlanta game last year, in that second Houston game, you can really see that this guy has a chance to be a shutdown type corner. And Cisco, I think he'll get an opportunity to take over the starting job as well. So they have some athletes on that side of the ball. And I think once they figure out their strengths and how they can utilize them in that scheme and make some adjustments to the scheme, that they're going to be a pretty good defense.
We're talking with Rick Spielman, longtime GM in the National Football League, CBS Sports HQ now. You can catch him there. And Duval's been dying to see a winner, Rick. And they scored on average close to 2 touchdowns. They gave up on average close to 4 touchdowns. Just based on the short time you've been here and what you've seen, which do you think can make a market improvement?
I think they both will. I think that the offense is going to put points on the board. I know Doug Peterson and Mike McCoy's working directly with Trevor Lawrence, and they brought in a lot of quarterback guru. Jim Bob Cooter, who I know was in Detroit when we played against him when he was coaching Matthew Stafford, and then Press Taylor, whose brother is Zach, and he's been with Doug. So they got a lot of brain power, especially with the quarterback. And I think as long as Trevor doesn't turn the ball over like he did last year, and he can get the ball in the playmakers' hands and let them go do what they do and get paid to do for a living, that they're going to score a lot more points. And I think the defense will be better as well. But you want to make sure that your offense is controlling the ball, and you don't want to be 3 and out as many times as they were last year, because that just puts the defense on the field. And especially playing here in Jacksonville in the heat, if those defensive players are getting 60 or 78, 75, 80 snaps a game, it's just going to wear them out.
Rick Spielman joining us on the Farah Farah phone line. Rick, let's talk about you a little bit. Following your departure from Minnesota and before you signed with CBS Sports, were you exploring potential opportunities with other NFL teams, including one potentially here in Jacksonville?
Why would I jump on there when I could do this luxurious life of being a media person? I don't
That's
know
what
how
I'm
good
saying.
No, I had some. I will not say who or what, but I did have some people calling me and inquiring. And I think, we just bought a retirement home down in Sanibel Island over on the West Coast. And I'm really enjoying doing the media stuff. I love talking about football. I think I have some knowledge on, the draft and seeing what I'm seeing out at these camps. And I'm just going to see kind of where it goes and where it goes this year and see what happens down the road. But right now, I'm just honed in and hopefully can do some of the media stuff because I really found out how much I enjoyed it. The one thing I did notice in practice, which I never noticed when I was a GM, all the media hover, and it's like if you threw one bomb on, the whole media department would be wiped out. They're all sitting in a corner. I was like, how the hell?
That sounds like you've thought about that, Rick.
Well, that's when I was a GM. Now I'm fine.
Now, hey, Rick, listen, not a bad idea to move to South Florida, take a little bit of time off, kind of evaluate, do the media thing. That's kind of something that Doug Peterson did, albeit not with the media thing last year. I'm curious, from your perspective, knowing that the Eagles and Vikings played a little bit, I believe. You guys played against Doug when you were the GM and he was the head coach of the Eagles?
Yes. Yeah, no, they whooped our behinds in the NFC Championship game a few years ago.
I was gonna say, I thought that was that case. Knowing that and knowing that he just took this year off, are you seeing a different Doug Peterson than you did in 2017, 2018?
I think the way the game has gone and just the pressure of the game and the pressure of winning and everybody wants instant gratification and just looking and watching Doug and his energy out on the field. And to get that, I would call it a mental health break for a year and just to sit back, enjoy some time with your family because you probably never. And that's the one thing that I'm really enjoying. I never really got to spend as much time with my family as I've been this past year. And to do that and get refreshed, and it's amazing how much better you feel and how much more energy you have when you jump back into the fray.
Throw one more at us, Rick, before we say goodbye. Just the idea of an improved football team. If you had to at least put a label on one that you feel like needs a little more either personnel or a little more work, the weakest link that you see.
With Jacksonville or with the NFL?
Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be curious to see how the secondary comes along.
Okay.
Because I think that they tried to address the run defense. I think the secondary and how they're going to fit into this new scheme, and are they going to be able to hold up if they're bringing all these pressure packages? And the other area that I think they've improved, but I want to see is that offensive line. Like they brought Scherf in. I know that. I think they're very high on the kid from Kentucky that they drafted, as a Fortner.
Yeah.
And I bet you he ends up being a center. But the other guy that I'm curious to see if he takes a leap in the second year is Walker Little, because I thought he is an athletic left tackle coming out of Stanford. Now, unfortunately, he had injuries at Stanford. But I think that if they can get him coming along, they got a young rookie center that's probably potentially going to start, that how this offensive line holds up. And if the offensive line can hold up and they can get the running game going and they got those two horses in the backfield that are healthy, that's sure in hell going to help Trevor Lawrence in his progression.
Yeah, totally agree. Listen, man, we appreciate your time and perspective. That's for sure. Hopefully we'll be able to do it again. By the way, you might Prisco was complaining about having to go back to the Blacks at Southampton. He was ripping you guys for wanting to play too long of a golf course.
I don't know what he's talking about, but I'm learning how to play golf now.
Yeah. And
he said, "Boy, you're like Alan Page." And I says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, you shot 8 and 8 on the last 2 holes." So that's a good one. So I Alan Page those 2 holes.
There you go. Listen, thanks, Rick. We appreciate it. Hope to talk to you again.
Okay, thanks for having me on. It was fun.